My name is Damon Brown. You're watching BringYourWorth.tv. Go to the website, BringYourWorth.tv. You'll see my mug hanging out there. This episode 384. Thank you for coming through. Every Wednesday, I do a live show. I'll be doing it a little bit lighter during the summer, but as we get into the summer months here in the States. But come check me out, see what's happening. I'm an entrepreneurial coach. I help you as a side hustler, as a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. I'm one of you. I did my two startups while being a stay-at-home dad to my wife and I's first son. Second startup got sold right around the time that my son turned 2. And I understand and respect that journey as you're juggling things as a minority, as someone who might be underrepresented. And so I'm here to support you, particularly with this channel. Bring Worth TV, live every Wednesday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time, which is why I'm sweating. It's already 107 here. You subscribe to Damon Brown's Bring Your Worth.tv for free, right here or at the links below. Get the complete Bring Your Worth collection. And I do mean the whole Bring Your Worth series. My second son just turned 8. The first Bring Your Worth book called The Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, thank you for turning into a bestseller, came out around the time he was about 4 months old. And so it's been an 8-year journey. I wanted to go and capture it here. It has The Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, so the whole trilogy. Also has Bring Your Worth, the eponymous, I think that's the right word, show. And also has my personal favorite, Built From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, Nourish the World. Go and check it out. If you want to get it signed and get it sent from my little hands, or you want to get the Bring Your Worth mug, or the t-shirt, go through to damonbrown.net, or you can go through your favorite provider. Shout out to y'all over on Amazon. All the links are below for you as well. If you are aware of what's happening in the United States, as well as in other countries, a lot of political stuff going on. I joined a platform called Moxie. I'm actually one of their ambassadors / content providers. And what I'm doing is having a discussion on there regularly about how political decisions, not partisan, but political decisions are actually going to affect us as side hustlers, solopreneurs, otherwise non-traditional entrepreneurs. Content is beefing up over there. I'm slowly but surely getting some good stuff on there, so be sure and check it out. If you use the link below and use my code Brown Damon, basically my name backwards, then you'll be able to get the first 60 days free. I just voted here in Las Vegas. We just had our local election for getting ready for the primaries for the Senate. So it's real. Even though summer's just beginning, here in the States, we don't have our big election for the president until the second week of November. It's called Super Tuesday. It's always the second Tuesday of November. So to get wild over here, but if you're paying attention, it's already wild. Join me on the discussions over there, as well as get access to all the other people that are giving commentary in regards to their particular viewpoint. And if you missed it, I just premiered a video a few days ago. A lot of y'all are liking it. I'm loving the commentary on it too. It's Business Success Without Social Media. It's basically a compilation of all the different videos that I've done about how I built my business outside of social media, from leaving social media. And if you've been following my work, I'm not on most of the social media platforms, from the decision to leave and what you need to think about, to building an audience outside of social media, which people are most concerned about. So I get into newsletters and other approaches you can take. And lastly, I give insight as far as how you can actually make a living and make a profit. And the secret is I actually started making more money when I spent less time on social media. All that's in there. It's like a 2-hour episode, just packed in. I really want it to be the ultimate guide. So be sure and check it out if you haven't already. Today, one of my favorite subjects. Again, I'm a business coach. I've coached hundreds of y'all. I love this subject. Stop self-sabotage. Stop self-sabotage. Blah, blah, blah. Get it out of my mouth. Let's go ahead and define what self-sabotage is. Let's talk about how you can stave it off. You might not be able to stop it, but you can slow it down a little bit. As they used to say in basketball, you can't stop someone, but you can contain them, right? You can't stop somebody, but you can contain it. So we're going to talk about that aspect. And lastly, we're going to talk about what you can do if you fall into that trap. I certainly have. And it's like, you have that moment. It's like, what the hell are you doing, David? Why are you doing that? And self-sabotage actually can prevent us from being our best self. And that's my ideal for you, is for you to be at your highest level, whether it's personally, professionally, mentally, emotionally, even physically. reaching those levels that, frankly, you deserve. But self sabotage tends to come in when we feel like we don't deserve whatever we're getting. So let's get into the episode. If you have any questions or comments, or even want to share a moment where you end up sabotaging yourself, I'm definitely going to share some stuff here. Feel free to jump in the comments and let me know what's happening. All right, the first question: what is self sabotage? Really important thing, because we talk about, oh, they sabotage themselves. They're sabotaging this project. I sabotage this. What exactly does sabotage mean? If you have my newsletter or at joindamon.me, you know I made a joke about it where I was talking about BC Boys sabotage. So feel free to go to joindamon.me and learn more about the deeper discussion in regards to self sabotage and what it can mean in our lives. But for here, let's define it. As I said in the newsletter this morning, self sabotage often happens when we haven't should be fully integrated our worth to our situation. Self sabotage often happens when we haven't fully integrated our worth into our situation. In other words, if you have a fantastic relationship and they're everything that you want them to be, and they love you and all that stuff, and then you do something and it becomes a train wreck, you might not feel like you deserve that love. If you get this great job offer and it sounds like everything's lined up and it's all good, and then you come up with something almost like, if you guys used to watch Seinfeld, which I guess is a classic now, it's like 20 years ago, but those moments, you know the moments I'm talking about. If you watch Seinfeld, where it's like you're in this perfect situation and then you do something and it's like, why did you do that? Maybe you feel like you didn't really deserve the job. One of my guys, Carl Jung, it's weird to call him one of my guys, he was well passed away by the time I was around here, but one of my favorite philosophers, and of course one of the forefathers, I should say, of modern sociology, says that which we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fade. That which we don't not bring to consciousness appears in our life as fade. So you ever meet somebody, or maybe you've been that person where it's just like, man, I almost had it, and then this thing happened, and I just have the worst luck in the world. And we've all had bad luck. I got my stories, but at a certain point, it's like you have to figure out what the common denominator is. If that happens to you 5, 6 times, there might be something that you're blocking or something that you're bringing up. And not even from a spiritual standpoint, not even that deep, but just literally certain actions or motives or changes that you're doing that are preventing you from having the success that you want. Carl Jung kind of hit the nail on the head. He said this probably a century ago, back when he was coming out with his books. I have some other videos where I talk more about Carl Jung's work, that and link below, but we'll get into that in a second. Self-sabotage then is when you haven't fully integrated your worth to your situation. You might have a great situation, but if you feel like you don't deserve it, you're not worth it, you're not worthy of the situation, then it'll be like, let me knock myself down a peg. There's a lot of celebrities in the news right now. I'm not going to get into it. There always are a lot of celebrities in the news right now. And you think about their actions or the stuff that's come to light, and it's like, you seem to be at the pinnacle of where you're at. Why would you do that? You don't have to do that. But on some level, evidently they felt like they had to. And as I was talking to a mentor recently about it, it's almost like people say, okay, I'm actually not worth this. You guys think I'm a genius. You guys think I'm perfect. You guys think I'm exactly the amazing genius, iconoclast, whatever fancy Merriam-Webster word you want to throw out there. Grab a thesaurus, throw it out there. But inside, I don't feel that. You all might say that. The crowd might say that. The populace might say that, but I don't feel that. And so I'm going to take myself down so you can see who I really am, because that feels like I'm being true to myself. It's not enough. It's not enough. The adoration of thousands, millions, in some cases, people, billions. And the more adoration they have, the more they feel like they're not worthy of it. And then they'll find ways to sabotage themselves. That's about as deep as it gets. Because, I mean, why wouldn't everyone wants to love themselves? So there must be something that's preventing them from doing so. And that's that deep work that I've talked about a lot since all the recent episodes have been a lot about deep work and going inside oneself. It's been a deep year for me, so I'm kind of taking you on my own journey. I'm far from perfect, but I'm doing the work, and that's all that can be asked of someone. Are you doing the work? If you're doing the work, then the chances of that self-sabotage become smaller and smaller. If you're not doing the work, if you're not exploring your shadow side or understanding the deeper side of the work of how you're showing up in the world, then that self-sabotage should come out. As I said in the newsletter at joindamon.me earlier today, that shadow side tends to come out right when we're at our pinnacle. With the Will Smith, Chris Rock incident, I guess that was a couple years ago now. And that's essentially what he said when he got the Oscar after the slap. He was like, yeah, this, and he said it in his own particular way. But it's the same thing where that came out when he was at one of his career pinnacles. You can name a celebrity and those things happen. If you're not doing that deeper work, then it's going to come out and bite you in the ass. You got to think about those particular things. That's why I really want to do this episode today. As you can tell, I can talk about this all day. I've been on my own journey with it, and it's real talk. It's real talk. So you're like, all right, I know what self-sabotage is. What am I supposed to do with it? First recommendation, one of my favorite books in the world. And as I've talked about, I've particularly this year, again, I'm working on myself a lot, and I have like castles now of books. Even after all those books and all the books I've read, even all the books that I've written, all that stuff, this is one of those ones, as I say. Easily top 25, maybe 50th book I've ever read in my life. I've read a lot of books. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, fantastic. Let me stop ogling and going on and on about this book. Let me break it down to you. Number one, a lot of the theories and things that I've talked about in my books, there's like 5 or 6 of them that come from this book where I just started to think about these theories. So shout out to Gay Hendricks, for real, and expanded on them, of course, but expanded on them. We could do a whole episode on it. Maybe we will in the future. Jump in the chat if you'd like that. His book basically says we are the biggest limitation to our own success. Not in the sense of blame or that you should feel shame about it or that there's something wrong with you. More like we have mental limitations that prevent us from happening. There's quite a few theories in here. That's why I'm kind of stuttering. But my favorite theory in here, and that's tough to say, is the upper limit problem. You call it a ULP if you want. The upper limit problem basically says you want to go over here, but you feel like you deserve to be over here. And so once you start to veer over here and get higher and higher, better and better, have that success, have that money, have that beautiful love of your life, whatever, then that upper limit problem comes in and says, no, that's not who you are. I think the Gay uses it as the description he uses, if I remember correctly. He has quite a few analogies. It's like a thermostat. And so again, it's about 107, 108. We actually have a temperature warning here in Las Vegas. So it's about 108, 109 here. Again, that's why you see the little sweat on my head. And our air conditioner is working, and it's still hot as heck in here. But it works like air conditioner. I'm not air conditioner, a thermostat, or more like a temperature gauge, where if it goes up to say 80 degrees, but you have it set for 74 degrees, then temperature, the AC or whatever the equivalent is going to kick in. And it's going to be like, no, Damon. No, you said that you're at 74 degrees. Now you're at 80. We're going to turn you down. And it could be 79 degrees. It could go all the way down to 70 degrees. Because it's like that little thing in your mind says, no, that's not who I am. I have a lot of relatives that are from the hood. I'm originally from South Jersey. I spent a little bit of time there, but that's not where I was raised, mostly suburban and urban areas. And we talk about that all the time. Shout out to Camden, New Jersey. We talk about that all the time where you can get out of the hood, out of the rougher areas. Again, Camden back then, as well as now, is pretty rough. Much love to my folks that are out there. But once you leave, nice Freudian slip there. Once you leave that particular area, you still could have the same mindset of the people there that might be a little bit more limited. Not all the people, but some of the people. So I know Tim Ferriss had talked about this recently where his family grew up with very modest means. And now, like, he's very well known. He's probably been a millionaire several times over at this point, especially with his investments. but he'll still, I think it was some example he gave where he'll still buy the cheapest brand of toilet paper. And it's just like, right, but it's not good for his body. He's around my age, so we're both middle age, and it's like, you can buy the Charmin. It's okay. You don't have to buy the great value. No shots at great value. We have some of it. But do you understand what I'm saying? There's a level of limitation. And that's what he means by upper limit problem. So if you're a janitor and you've been told you're going to be a janitor, and nothing wrong with being a janitor, and then you get the opportunity to be, say, principal of that same school, and it happens like that, there's going to be certain transitions, and they have to be conscious that you're going to have to go through to make sure that you're ready for that leap. Again, the big leap. That's just one of the many, many great theories on it. Again, I might do a whole show about it. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to do that, but I can talk about it all day. There's a fantastic book to start if you're trying to do less self-sabotage, and aren't we all? A good companion to this is a recent compilation I did, a beginner's guide to how to know yourself more. I had a live show talking about understanding your shadow, had a couple other shows understanding the parts of us that we don't see. There's something called the Johari window, where there's certain things that people see and certain things that people don't see, and the same for you. I'm not going to go and break I've done whole videos on it. Feel free to look up Johari, Johari, in the comments or on bringyourworth.tv and see what's happening. But basically, there's certain parts of ourselves that we don't see, but that's reflective of how we show up in the world. If that's the case, then it's better for us to understand and empower ourselves in that regard. This episode gets to all that. It's probably about an hour and a half, might even be shorter than that, might even only be an hour long, but it's like 3 or 4 different techniques and tools in there, including a live show to break down what those insights would look like to do less self-sabotage, understand your shadow self better. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV every Wednesday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time, as well as some bonus episodes as you see. Subscribe for free at the link below. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. And while you're out there, go and check out the best of collection, the complete Bring Your Worth collection, available everywhere fine books are sold. Excuse me. All right, let's get into the next one. How do you prevent self-sabotage? Decent question. If you have any questions, jump in the comments and let me know. I think it comes down to 2 basic things. First of all, you have to know what your insecurities are. As I talked about in the newsletter this morning at joindamon.me, it's almost like knowing what your Achilles heel is. And the second part is having strategies in mind around that Achilles heel, around that insecurity. I was talking to a relative recently, and they were talking about they wanted to start a project, and they tend to make it big. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do this small thing. Well, why don't I add this into it? Well, why don't I make it bigger? Well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well make it bigger. And and you can almost see it expanding. But at the same time, that idea is expanding, which works for some people. I can be like that. So I tend to be expansive. So that works. But while my loved one was doing this, I could also see the fear start to come in their eyes as far as, wait, how am I going to do this? But it was like they kept expanding. It's like, and in many cases, if we have that particular type of framework, then we're just not going to start, right? It's almost like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a Lego model. You tell them play with Legos, except for with my kids. I'm going to do a Lego model of, let's say, a building. I'm just going to do a building. Wait, well, why don't I make a building next door? Why don't I make the people that are walking to the buildings? Well, why don't I make a neighborhood? Why don't I make a city? Why don't I make a replica of Las Vegas? And that excitement is there, and it's like, okay, but I haven't put down 1 brick. I don't even have enough bricks. That's too much. Let me move on to the next thing. That is a self-sabotage, because there's a certain Achilles heel and insecurity where it's like, if I do something small, essentially, that's not going to be enough. What I do has to be big. Otherwise, people aren't going to appreciate it. I won't feel good about it. So let me make it as big as possible. Oh, but I don't have the follow through to actually do this big thing. And if I can't do this big thing, I'm not going to do it at all. Example from me. I told you I was gonna bring out some of my dirty laundry. Was me being a kid, and my kids are 8 and 10, around that same age, particularly around the age of my eldest. And my room was so messy. Looking back decades later, I'm like, oh my God, how did I sleep? You know, I mean, we were in a safe neighborhood. There weren't any issues in the house, but something could have been hanging out in my room the whole time and just crawled out at night, and it would have been fine. For someone who has an active imagination, I don't know how I managed to have papers and whatever other stuff that I had on the floor and still sleep very well at night. Of course, my parents were like, Damon, you got to clean your room, get your stuff together. But I'm very self motivated, which is a gift and a curse. I'm assuming a lot of y'all are too, since a lot of us are entrepreneurs, right? It's kind of the nature of self motivation. F you, I'm not going to do what you tell me. Shout out to Suicidal Tendencies, the group, right? But that whole thing, it's like I wasn't having it, but I was comfortable with that. But what I learned later is that for high achievers, again, I got a TV show, I got best-selling books. I'm sitting here sweating 110-degree heat. It keeps going up, right? I'm sweating in 110-degree heat in a blazer because I want to show up for y'all. Tell me I'm not an overachiever. For overachievers like us, right? They're not like us, right? Overachievers like us, we're more likely to have that extreme mindset, which I'll get into a little bit later on in the show. Stay tuned for that. And so it's like the room is so messy, I'm not going to do it at all because I know it's going to get messy again. The daily chores and all that, I don't want to do that because I already ate 3 times today. I have to do the same thing over again tomorrow. Yeah, I already made a mess in my room. I got to clean it now, but it's going to get messy again. So why not just skip that? It's almost like you're too smart. It's like, skip that, right? Too smart in air quotes. Trust me on that. So there had to be ways for me to structure things where, my office is a little bit messy, but not anywhere near what it was. And obviously messy because I'm doing a lot of things. And like I mentioned in previous episodes, I'm doing a lot of projects. So this is actually not the default. My default is having a clean office. But the cleanliness comes in me doing little things at once. Saying, okay, I'm going to have a snack in here, which I rarely do in the office, but I'm going to make sure I throw it away. I have my coffee. Okay, let me make sure I clean my coffee mug and move on. And do that while it's happening. That allows the self-sabotage to at least be, contained. As I said in the earlier analogy, you can't stop self-sabotage. We're naturally insecure. We naturally have our Achilles heel. We naturally have our issues. In some ways, as some psychologists said it, I forgot who said it, I wish I could remember, but they said our issues are essentially our personality. Those things we call personality are actually based on our issues. And if you want to get really deep, also based on our trauma and whatever came from that. Whole another episode that we actually had earlier this year. And in fact, if you go to the previous episode I just talked about, as far as, let me find the link for you guys. You know what I'm talking about if you just joined in. Here we go. How to know yourself better, beginner's guide. I talk about this. The link is right below, just to make sure I didn't neglect you guys that just got into the show. So if you know what your Achilles heel are, knowing yourself, then you're able to create strategies to get around that. That's the key thing. You're not going to stop your issues. There's always so much healing from, trauma healing, whatever you want to call it, you can do. Because some are scars, which are past tense, and some are wounds where they're always going to be a little bit open for you. It's just going to be insecurity. That's part of humanity. And trust me on this one, I've worked really hard working on my stuff, particularly again, as of the last several months or last couple of years, even deeper than I normally do. And those things are still there. So you find ways to work around them or even make peace with them. I'm insecure about certain things. I've talked about it in my books. That's kind of what it is. But that humanity allows me to connect with you and vice versa. And then we might even come up with strategies that allow us to overperform. One other quick example, I talked about this. It's definitely in the Complete Bring Your Worth collection. But I can't remember which book. I want to say it's in The Ultimate Bites as Entrepreneur. You might be able to tell I have a slight lisp. And I had a really strong lisp. Like people weren't able to understand me back when I was starting kindergarten. So really high reading capacity or communication level. It's probably like 4th or 5th grade communication level while I was going into kindergarten, 1st grade. So I was always really into communication. Other things, Strengths weren't as high. So this isn't a flex. I was just saying I was overperforming in communication. So you can imagine how hard it was when people couldn't understand what I was saying because I had such a bad lisp. Fast forward now, and I've done 27 books. I've been on various TED stages. I got the show. There's 18,000 plus subscribers as of this premiere, and I'm about to hit 400 episodes. And I have 2 degrees in journalism. Shout out to Northwestern and Oakland University. So that's what I mean. Like that insecurity, those challenges, as far as saying people don't understand what I'm saying. I overperformed in that in such a ridiculous way where it's like people are like, "Oh, you're a great communicator," and I'm all like, "Am I?" Because that insecurity is still there. That's what I mean. If I didn't take that and understand that communication was an Achilles heel of mine and recognize that I felt insecure about it, then there wouldn't be anything I could do about it. If I was just like big and bold and like I communicate fine, blah blah blah, blah, and I felt that way all the time, you can imagine the self-sabotage that would have stopped me from getting my master's in magazine publishing. Would have sure as hell wouldn't have got me on the TED stage. Like all that stuff wouldn't have happened, I don't think. Or I would have sabotaged it before it would have happened. So that's what I mean by being able to prevent it. It's not about being able to take it away or suddenly feel better. It's not going to go away. It's more like I'm going to find ways to recognize it, know my insecurities are, and then to come up with strategies to process and deal with it so that I can, at baseline, be functional in my life. Otherwise, the sabotaging does not stop because you haven't healed, recognized what you need to heal from. Speaking of strategy, why plans don't work, do this instead. It's actually one of my favorite episodes. It's one of the less watched episodes. And it's like that little episode that could, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this episode. I love the theory behind it. It's basically the difference between a plan and a strategy. I'm not even gonna get into it here. It's a super short episode, like 6 minutes long. Check it out, please. Please do me a favor, check it out. But it gets into this where the short version of it is that a plan is temporary and fixed. And a strategy is more flexible and allows you to have long-term thinking, which is what we're really getting at here. Speaking of that, man, I'm hitting all my favorite books today. Upstream by Dan Heath. Shout out to Dan. Fantastic book. I have the audiobook, but I don't have the physical book. I need to buy the physical book, so I need to grab it. Maybe I'll put it on my Father's Day list. But fantastic book. The basic premise is that there's downstream and there's upstream, like a river. If you know how a river goes, there's going up the river and there's going down the river. What you want to do is look upstream at issues that might be coming up so that when they hit the downstream to where you are, they're not an issue anymore. So many, similar to Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, there's so many good theories in this, like a ridiculous amount of good theories. One of my favorite ones, and I forget the name of the theory. Lots of theory terms in there. I forget the name of the theory, but the basic idea is that we often think we're doing well when we're able to do well in a crisis. We'll put it like that. It's like, oh, this thing happened, and I was able to show up here. And this thing happened, I was able to show up here. What we undervalue, though, is making decisions that prevents the crisis from happening at all. And the problem is that when you prevent something from happening, mentally you don't get credit for it. And no one else gives you credit for it either. Right? So if something like the printer suddenly catches on fire at your office job and you're able to put the fire out, they're gonna be like, Jim, and then they're gonna give you a crown and parade you around and say, you saved our company. But if 3 months before you were Bob and you notice that the printer had some type of logistical issue with it and it might cause a fire, you could fix it without getting paid, run by your boss and say, hey, looked like there might be a future issue with the printer, so I just went in and fixed it. They'd be like, all right, thank you, Bob. And then they go back to drinking their coffee or doing their reports or whatever. Total stereotypes here. I'm thinking Office Space or The Office. Pick one. Do you see the difference? Upstream is basically saying you want to be like Bob. You want to just stop it before it even becomes an issue. But we have to train our brains for that. One of the biggest trainings about it is that you're not going to get as much credit for it. There's things that I've done within my family. There's things I've done within my businesses. There's things that I've done as a coach where I saw stuff down the line and I'm like, okay, we're going to change this. And might not even have said anything. If you're going to do that, which I think is true leadership, if you're going to do that, just assume you're not going to get credit for it. In fact, there was an excellent book, and I cannot remember which book it was, but it began with a great analogy talking about a medicine person. And this is back in the day, it might have been like the Andes or somewhere like that, but ages ago. And a medicine person, to paraphrase briefly, what wasn't well known. And I think someone came up and said, hey, you do all this great work. Why aren't you well known? Why aren't they praising you? And the medicine person said, well, if they were praising me, then it would have been too late. They're going to praise when they're sick already. They're going to praise when there's a crisis. When they actually see the magnitude of the situation and then I'm able to fix it, they're going to praise it. But I do good work because I'm able to stop it before it even begins. So that's what Upstream is. As soon as I find that book, I definitely will include it in one of the episodes. I wish I could remember what book it is. Like I said, I've read a ridiculous amount of books. But it was a great analogy that began the book. Upstream is basically giving you the tools to be that medicine person, to say, hey, this is how I'm going to go ahead and show up in my life, in my business, to my colleagues, to the world. I'm going to do this in this particular way, and that will prevent these bigger things from happening. Again, back to the self-sabotage. Love that book. Highly recommend it. Can't recommend it more. Shout out to Dan. You made a killer book. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. I'm here to help you as a side hustler or solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching Bring Your Worst Show. You subscribe for free at the link below. I come to you every Wednesday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Like I said, it's hot as Alvin over here. Welcome to June in Las Vegas. All right. If you have any questions or comments, throw them in the chat. Are there moments where you were about to self-sabotage and you're able to prevent it? Jump in there, share some stuff. I'm happy to share mine. All right. When it comes to self-sabotage, how can I recover from it? Really, really good question. I think it's an important question when it comes to understanding, kind of accepting is going to happen. And I think it comes down to three basic things. When self-sabotage happens and you recognize it, it's really important. Number one, you have to give yourself grace. It happens to everybody. Number two, you have to make sure you got support around you. So to remember that you are loved no matter what you do. And number three, and this gets back to the previous question, to take the long view, take the macro view, look at the big versus the small. Let's start with the first one. Giving grace to yourself essentially means you accept that you're human and you are going to be off the mark sometimes, you're going to make mistakes. And that's part of the game. That's kind of how it works. No one came here being a genius and getting everything perfect. No one. And if people tell you that they are, then that means they really, really have some big insecurities. So no one is like that. No one is perfect. So accepting that and maybe even giving yourself some slack and some ease when it comes to you making progress. So it might be a thing of you self-sabotage all the time, and then suddenly you're in a situation and it's like you stop right before the cliff, Wile E. Coyote or Roadrunner style. You're like, oh, almost did it. Wait. And you reflect for a second. And then you do it anyway. That reflection is growth. Even if you end up self-sabotaging anyway, that 1, 2, 3 second delay, right? As the saying goes, there's the gap between response and oh no, I'm forgetting another one. The gap between response and reaction. The gap between reaction and response. That's where the wisdom is. So you're ready to react to something, especially if you're mad or something. You're ready to react. But then if you pause long enough, then you actually can have a response. Something that actually matches the situation. It's almost like a level of emotional intelligence. You might self-sabotage anyway. I'm going to keep it real with you. I've been there. But what was the process right before you self-sabotaged? Were you more reflective? Did you realize you might be self-sabotaging, but you convinced yourself otherwise and I'm doing it? As you keep working on that, the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you get that level of awareness. The books, the tools, the videos that I'm giving you today, hopefully will help with that awareness, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Trust me, that gap can only get wider, but it's never gonna that tension's never gonna go away. It's kind of how it works. Again, you see the gray hairs in my chin, so I've been around long enough. It doesn't go away. You get better at it, but it never goes away. Once you accept it doesn't go away, I think you can give yourself more grace, because I think often we're hard on ourselves because we believe it's going to go away. And it's like, no, actually, it doesn't go away at all. Like that's not how it works. Number one, if you want to recover from it, you have to accept that some level of grace for yourself, and then whatever you deal with, it's not going to go away. The second thing is bringing lots of support, and that could be your your blood family, your chosen family, your loved ones, your friends, your colleagues, your partner, whatever, your kids, your parents, doesn't matter. But someone to go and say, yeah, you did that and you're still okay. Yeah, you did that and you're still loved. Even connecting with other people who might have a similar self-sabotage thing, where like I have so many people in my life that consider themselves perfectionists, and they could talk, and I'm not a perfectionist, but as you can tell by like I'm kind of more of a launcher than a perfectionist, but that's a whole nother episode. But the thing is that I'll see them have conversations and I'll have no idea what they're saying, and I'm like, what are y'all talking about? I don't. And they're like, oh well, you're not really a perfectionist. I'm like, nope. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. If you're watching, you know who you are. And I was like, oh, okay. But that's bonding. That's giving each other grace. Not just giving yourself grace, giving each other grace. Be like, yeah, I get it. It's hard. I want everything to be perfect. And I gotta let that stuff go. I can't relate to that. But they found people that they can relate to. Again, I got other issues. So it's like I find people that have like issues, and those people in some ways became, my chosen family. So shout out to them. Again, you know who you are. But finding other people that will give that grace to you and remind you that you're worthy of whatever you happen to be pursuing. And lastly, taking the long view of it. You see me coming very New Jersey right now, using my hands all the time, but very long view. So if it's something that you self-sabotaged and it was, say, a job offer, are there going to be other job offers? Were there actual reasons why the job wasn't a good fit for you? Are there going to be other opportunities that are similar to that particular job? Do you need a job right now, or can you wait a little bit longer? Is it a dire situation? Like just that one idea, you can try and do the calculus on it, bring out the abacus and be like, oh, this wasn't life or death. Some situations are life or death. I've been in a couple, so let's keep it real. Sometimes it is that, but most of the time it isn't. And it's like the main thing that's hurting right now is your ego. I got a big one, so I get it. And sometimes it's like that's the main thing that hurts. And it's like, all right, if you can nurse that, then you'll be all right and move on to the next thing. So if you're trying to recover from a self-sabotage situation, like it already happened, not while it's happening, but it already happened, it's done, then you want to give yourself grace. You want to be surrounded by people that will also give you grace. And you want to take the long view and decide how really important that thing is. Sometimes it is really important, but sometimes the main thing, Bruce, is your ego. Here's an episode, Having a Long-Term Vision Beyond Now. It's actually a really short kind of experimental episode I did probably about a year and a half ago, but it was like various clips from the previous episodes talking about having a long-term vision. I think the whole episode's like 6 minutes long. It's very short, but it's like 3 or 4 different little episodes. I think you might enjoy it. And I rediscovered it again. I'm approaching 400 episodes, so I don't remember all of them to be honest. But I was exploring my show a few days ago for an upcoming project. You can look for it in the upcoming days. You'll get a notification when it comes out. I was working on this project and I came across this and I'm like, you know what, that would kind of fit the vibe as far as thinking long term, and also being generous and gentle and having grace with ourselves as much as possible. And the classic, shout out to Dr. Carol Dweck, the classic Mindset. You might not have heard of the book Mindset. It's an unusual title, but you probably have heard of fixed mindset and growth mindset. A fixed mindset and a growth mindset. If you're watching this channel, you probably have heard of this before, even in passing, but let's break it down. A fixed mindset says, this is who I am. This is my view on the world. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not good at. This will never change. I am good at math. I am bad at science. Fixed mindset. Excuse me. Growth mindset says, I'm not great at math right now. Or I'm sorry, I'm really good at math right now. When I get to higher levels of math, I might have some challenges. I suck at science right now, but maybe when I get to chemistry, I'm going to be okay. Or maybe biology will be my thing. Let's do biology instead. The difference is one person is saying, this is who I am. I can never change. It's almost like being whatever you have from birth. Like I have a birthmark. Like it's like having a birthmark. It's like, no, this is what I am. I'm doomed to this, right? It's almost like the class society. You know what I mean? Where you get into the different rankings. Like, okay, you're born of shopkeepers. You're going to be a shopkeeper the rest of your life. You got some kids. They're going to be shopkeepers too forever. That's the energy of a fixed mindset. A growth mindset, as it implies, says, okay, this is who I am right now. This one thing could happen, or more importantly, I could grow, hence growth. I could grow in a certain way so that this isn't true anymore. When I first started the channel, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. All my episodes are up there. You can go back to episode 1. And yeah, it looks like I'm being held in an underground cave against my will. I'll leave it at that with the lighting and all that stuff. But at that moment, you got a choice. You, meaning all of us. You could say, okay, this kind of sucks. I think I'm going to stop because I'm going to suck. 400 episodes in, I'm still going to suck. And I'm about to hit my 400th episode. So speaking from experience, that's the fixed mindset. Or you can do the growth mindset and say, yeah, this sucks. But I wonder if I can do a little bit of research, get a little bit better lighting. And you notice I was tripping over a couple of my words. Maybe I could script it out as opposed to freestyling. Maybe I can do that. And then episode 2 comes. And it's like, oh, the lighting's a little bit better. Maybe I shouldn't have the window open, especially here in the desert. I live in Las Vegas. Maybe I shouldn't have the window open because the light's really harsh. And it's like, even for my brown skin, it's like blanking me out. Nobody can see me. Why don't I roll down the windows, get some blinds, and then have stronger light? Okay. And those adjustments happen. Growth is really about adjustments. It's about saying, I'm here right now. If I'm willing to make these adjustments, these not sacrifices, that's a little bit too dramatic, but if I'm willing to put the work in, back when I was talking about work at the beginning of the episode, if I'm willing to put the work in, then I'm confident this will improve. I don't know if I'm going to be like on this level, but I definitely can be better than where I am right now. That mindset helps with the self-sabotage as far as it not happening. Because if you have a fixed mindset, then you're basically saying, wow, let's go back to the job thing. Well, I was in a job interview and I said something really stupid again. All right, well, I guess I'm not good at job interviews, so I'll just stop interviewing for jobs, which sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. But some folks have that mentality, and it's like, even if they don't say it out loud, it's like, okay, you're just not gonna interview for jobs anymore. I hope you like entrepreneurship, right? What else are you gonna do? Okay, all right, good luck, right? Come watch Damon's show. But where a growth mindset will come in and say, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and I suck at job interviewing. I'm gonna take a LinkedIn thing and I'm gonna go ahead and figure out, like, you know how LinkedIn has the classes. Right. They used to call it something else. That's why I'm forgetting the name of it. But their new class system where it's like, okay, this is a certain class I'm going to take. And it's about how to interview people or how to be, I'm used to interviewing people as journalists, how to be interviewed and so forth. And I'm going to take that and maybe I'll be like 1 or 2%, maybe even 10% better. So I'll go to the next job interview and I'm ready to go. Those are the differences of the two things, you know, for sure. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you, Modernaire. Yeah, like for real. Like, yeah, that's how it works. Thank you. But I've been there. Even though I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, I've also done a big share of job interviews. Some of them were such different status that they would have changed the course of my career. And it didn't work out, obviously. I'm so happy to be here and do this, but also I'm all like, wow, I could have handled that differently. But that's also part of what we were talking about in the previous question. That's part of the grace. Thank you for your comment about it there. But that's part of the discussion. And Dr. Dweck's book talks about that and basically says these are the two frameworks. It's a really simple book, and it's a classic book. I don't think I got into it till almost about 10 years ago. And by then, it was already in its like third or fourth edition and had been out for like 15 years or something. So this book is like classic, like a quarter century old. Fantastic book. It's not more complicated than I'm explaining it. Or actually, I actually might be explaining it more complicated than Dr. Dweck does. But fantastic book if you want a quick, simple read and understanding how you can have a better mentality, and especially stopping the self-sabotage. This is a good trifecta. Again, I'm so excited about the books today. Number 1, The Big Leap. Number 2, Upstream. And number 3, get my fingers right. Number 3, Mindset. All 3 are just killer. They should be on your shelf. I have them all. I have Mindset somewhere around here. I have Upstream, an audiobook, and I have The Big Leap, an audiobook. Both of those audiobooks, by the way, are fantastic. I don't know the audiobook of Mindset, but the links are there. All the stuff is there. However, whatever framework or mindset you want to run with. That is today's show. And our topic today was how to stop self-sabotage. Everything I talked about, I get the words out of my mouth. Everything I talked about, all the links are below, including the books, the videos, all that. I'm really excited about today's show because I think there's some really good information in here. And if it's almost like when there's a song that you love, or even a book that you love, which is the case for me, and someone hasn't heard it or read it yet, you get all excited. I'm at that point because these 3 books are like ridiculously good. So shout out to all the authors. I know how hard it is to write books. So you guys did some classics. Once again, I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown, helping you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. Bring Your Show is live every Wednesday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. I might be doing some reruns, a couple things. This is summertime. I got my little boys. So we'll see where it goes. But I look forward to connecting with you all during the summer. And you can subscribe for free. If I happen to be having an off week or doing a rerun, this episode 384. Like, I don't know what y'all want. Like, you got 383 other episodes to watch. If you watch all of them, congratulations. If you haven't, which is most of you, go through the archives, see what's happening, and hopefully I can be part of your summer. And shout out to my folks down under, winter viewing. Until next time, remember, you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Take care of yourselves and others.